Welcome to our February Heritage Kitchener meeting. And we have some introductions first as a matter of commencing. So I would like to, on behalf of the committee, welcome back Diksha Chowdhury, Heritage Planner. Thank you. Diksha, do you have a few words?
No, Madam Chair, thank you for welcoming me back. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And Garrett, would you like to make some comments now before we begin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on our Heritage staff resourcing and some recent reorganization that has occurred at the city. So in December of last year, the planning division was reorganized into two separate divisions, one of them being the planning and housing policy team, which is led by Rosa Bustamante, and our second division is the development and housing approvals team, which is led by me. As part of that housing and development approvals team, Sandro Bassanis, who's seated to my left, is now the manager of site plan approval. And as part of Sandro's portfolio, that includes our 2 permanent and 1 contract heritage planning staff members. So Sandro is going to be joining us at Heritage Kitchener for moving forward and is supporting the team. I also wanted to just provide a quick update that we do have Jessica and Diksha here this evening, and then starting at our next meeting, Michelle Drake has returned as well. So we are, responding to the challenge ahead of us and properly resourcing our team in order to continue on with our progressive workload, which also includes responding to the Bill 23 review of our Heritage Register. So looking forward to another productive and busy year.
Thank you very much, Garrett. Just for clarification, Garrett, will you be attending our heritage meetings?
You can't get rid of me. I'll be here.
Sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
No, Madam Chair, I'm being funny. Yes, no, happy to also support the team. As I mentioned, we do have ahead of us, so continuing to support the team wherever I can to make sure that we can hit those targets that we set out last March with the changes to the legislation that we brought forward. So we are on track, and we're going to continue to work towards those goals.
Very good, thank you. And now I'd like to move along to number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof. And so anyone with a pecuniary interest on any item. Thank you, Andrew, and you've identified it to the clerk. Thank you. We're good. Would you like to say the number, please?
Yeah, just item 4.1.
4.1.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, moving along to 4.1, the Heritage Permit Application 2024 IV 0125 Joseph Street, replacement of windows DSD 2024-052. Jessica Vera will provide a brief presentation and overview. Jessica?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the remote working here. Does not seem to be responding. There we go. So this heritage permit application is for 25 Joseph Street, which is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The proposal includes the replacement of 7 broken panes of glass within different windows on the building. It's located on the west side of the original 1910 to 1911 portion of the school, and the glass will be replaced with new tempered thermal sealed glass units. The heritage permit is required as the windows are identified heritage attributes within the designating bylaw. In reviewing the merits of this application, it should be noted that the existing panes are broken, so they're impacting residents' quality of living, as well as exposing the interior of the building to damaging conditions, including weather and animals. While replacement is proposed for the broken panes of glass, the original window units themselves are proposed to be retained and refurbished. This work is consistent with provincial guidelines and frameworks, and the proposed alteration is not anticipated to adversely impact the cultural heritage value or interest of the subject property. And that concludes staff presentation. Sorry, that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there any questions for our staff? Yes, Alona.
So is it just the 7 panes that are being replaced, but yet the remainder of the windows, the panes are going to be clear glass? Is that right?
Yeah, so the original glass, the remaining panes that are in the windows that are not broken are to remain. They won't be touched. It's just the broken ones that are being replaced.
Is there a plan to replace everything in the future so that it has a symmetrical appearance, or is it just going to be...
No, at this time, there's no need to replace the other panes, and the ones that are proposed to be replaced are very similar in appearance to what's currently existing.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, no, I don't have a question, it's just a comment. I just wanted to say that, 25 Victoria Street is a very important heritage building in the downtown core, and not only for its heritage value, but it's also an affordable housing facility, so I fully support what's being proposed here.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. There was quite to staff, there was quite a presentation of work that would need to be done in the future. Is staff discussing this with the applicant?
Through you, Madam Chair, if you're referring to the document that was associated with this, they did just retain an engineering company to complete a full assessment of the building and identify work to be done in the life cycle of existing elements within the next, I believe the timeline was 10 years, but I can confirm that with the report. Right now, the windows were needed to have immediate action taken on them. The rest of the work was not immediate, or things were in good condition that they didn't need to be addressed right away. So the property owners have been working with staff, or have notified staff of this and shared the report in preparation for the work that they're anticipating to be occurring within the next few years.
Thank you, Jessica. And I must say that I was impressed to see this overall assessment. And it goes to show that when you have a dwelling with multiple units and a large one like this, it isn't necessarily because it's an old heritage building, but it can be any building. And the amount of money that has to be, shall we say, in reserve to be brought up to help what is occurring at the time, right? So, any other questions or comments? If not, I would like to call for somebody to move this resolution, the recommendation that pursuant to Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act, Heritage Permit Application HPA 2024 IV-01 be approved to permit the replacement of 7 window panes on the property principally addressed as 25 Joseph Street. Who would move that? Councillor Chapman, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. And so since the a recommendation received unanimous consent from the committee, it can be processed under delegated authority, approval authority following the committee meeting. Thank you. Now, could someone call Andrew
Yes,
in?
through the chair. I will go get him if we could just pause for a moment.
Thank you. Our next item is notice of intention to demolish 1027 King Street East, DSD 2024-057. And Jessica Vera will provide a brief presentation, PowerPoint, and an overview. And following this presentation, since we don't have delegations, members, you may ask questions of Jessica. So Jessica, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the city is in receipt of a notice of intention to demolish dated January 17th, 2024 for the property municipally addressed as 1027 King Street East, which is currently listed as a non-designated property of cultural heritage value or interest on our municipal heritage register. The notice has been provided as part of a redevelopment proposal, and it's in accordance with Section 27(9) of the Ontario Heritage Act. The property has been subject to an approved official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment and is now part of an active site plan application. The purpose of these is to facilitate the construction of a new mixed-use building with 2 towers, one being 11 stories in height and the other 29. So under the Ontario Heritage Act, Council does not have the authority to approve or refuse an owner's notice of intention to demolish, but rather they may either 1, request further information, 2, receive the notice of intention to demolish, allowing a notice period of 60 days to run its course, at the end of which demolition permit may then be issued, or 3, issue a notice of intention to designate, at which point Council would then have the authority to deny demolition. Staff recommend the second of these options. In consideration of the aforementioned options, the following should be noted. In association with this redevelopment, studies have been prepared and submitted, including a heritage impact assessment by MHBC Planning and a structural assessment report by Strike, Baldini, and Monix. The initial draft of the HIA was taken for review by the committee in January 2022, and no comments or concerns were identified at the time. The HIA had identified only one portion of the building, that being the central Art Deco style staircase, as retaining any heritage integrity or holding any cultural heritage value or significance. However, per the structural assessment, the retention of this portion of the building is not feasible, as it relies on the adjacent sections of the building for structural stability, and it's comprised of a material, specifically hollowed clay blocks, which are no longer manufactured and which don't meet current building code standards. As such, documentation, salvage of material, and commemoration are recommended as appropriate forms of mitigation per the HIA. A submitted documentation and salvage plan has been provided, and it's identified different materials to be incorporated into the redevelopment. Primarily, these salvage materials will be incorporated into an interior commemoration piece. Exterior commemoration is also proposed in the form of a timeline with dates and text, which communicate the history of the building, and in the form of an Art Deco style mural, which is reminiscent of the staircase. Heritage planning staff would note that while none of these submitted plans have received final approval, they have provided sufficient information to deem the notice of intention to demolish complete. And it's also Heritage planning staff's opinion that the proposed commemoration appropriately captures the intangible heritage values of the site, that being primarily the historical association with the Onward Manufacturing Company and the original owner. And that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. And now I'll turn to the committee for questions to staff. Ilona, please.
The building that is being proposed on the site that is going to be demolished, has the community in that area been given the opportunity to comment on the proposed build?
Through you, Madam Chair, the application, this development proposal included an official plan amendment as well as a zoning bylaw amendment application. So it was through that process that there was informal and formal consultation with the community. Those were public applications and were approved by council. So we did community consultation as part of the overall larger development applications.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alona. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I seem to recall this coming to us, but my question is it normal that it's been approved and now we're here talking about demolition, and which wasn't approved, right? The whole demolition of the site was not approved at that time. So will it, I guess it's unclear to me the process.
Yeah, so under the Ontario Heritage Act, Section 27(9), council has to receive a notice or formal written notice of the intention to demolish, and they have 60 days to decide on whether or not they want to proceed with the 3 options that I had laid out. So this is following normal timelines.
So even though it's been approved, demolition comes after? The approval of demolition comes after the approval of the site?
Through you, Madam Chair, so the land use permission, so the height and density were under consideration as part of the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. So those have been approved. And then the actual form and function of the actual development is under site plan review. And as a result of that, the final details are now known, which is proposing the demolition. So that's why we're in this step. So the demolition of this tower wasn't approved through the official plan amendment of the zoning bylaw. The concept conceptually through the height and density, and now we're into the detailed review and approval stage.
And can you just remind me when it was approved at council for the official plan and the zoning bylaw amendments?
It was in 2023. It was last year. I can get you the date.
Yeah, but no, my question is in that context, what was council aware of full demolition of this site?
So as part of the application that was presented in council's resolution, endorsed an urban design brief, and in that urban design brief, it did outline the proposal to remove. So we did know that at the time, and the heritage conservation and the commemoration was also conceptually showed at this time. But again, we've now, through the heritage permit application and notice of intent to demolish, we have additional details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I'm going to take a liberty here and make some comments. I recognize in the notes, and I appreciate staff's thorough overview of the work, the heritage impact assessment, the writing of the comments and observations. And one thing that jumped out was the fact that as a committee, we hadn't really made comments about this property, and that was in 2022. And perhaps we as a committee and members didn't realize the significance of this particular property. Having lived in the area for a long time and having taken the trolley, so to speak, on King Street, passing this particular building in my early days of work in this city, it always stuck out. Onward Manufacturing. This is the home of Eureka vacuum cleaners. It contributed to the streetscape. And I realized that over the years it's been remodeled, but that tower in the middle stands out, and it is definitely a landmark, and I'd say one of the finest Art Deco buildings that we have in the city. And now we're about to demolish it. And we can't find any way to incorporate it into the new design, and what a travesty. We're the home of innovation, and it seems to me that we need to start looking at how can we innovatively incorporate these buildings. Demolishing is about the easiest way to deal with an old site, an old property. It's the easiest to get on with, but innovation and going forward, I wouldn't ask that the building had to be moved, but is there not some way to have it incorporated? So I hear, and I have to read the recommendation in the staff report, but you can guess how I am going to be proceeding to vote on this. So, it is resolved that in accordance with Section 27(3) of the Ontario Heritage Act, the notice of intention to demolish received on January 18, 2024, and dated January 17, 2024, regarding the property municipally addressed as 1027 King Street East be received for information, and that the notice period run its course. So, who is going to move this motion? Andrew has moved it, so I will take the vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. 4. Opposed? So it's a tie vote for that. Clerk, help me. What has happened?
So if it's a tied vote, the motion fails. So that means the motion to approve is denied.
It's approved.
Yeah, it's denied.
Denied.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Since the motion is denied, Madam Clerk, what is the process now? Or perhaps staff have to expand on this.
Yep. Through you, Madam Chair, it goes to council for final decision.
Thank you, Jessica. So it will proceed then to council for final approval. And would that be the date, February 12th? Yes?
Yes, February 12th.
Sorry?
Yes, it will go to the February 12th meeting.
Thank you again. Moving along then to item 4.3. Before we begin to work on item 4.3, I'd just like to make a few comments. The third Monday of February, pre-2000, the year 2000, was known as Heritage Day, and now we have the official holiday known as Family Day. And pre-2000, Heritage Kitchener was known as LACAC, Local Architectural Conservation Advisory Committee. And as I was preparing for the meeting, I was going through my drawers of archives of old information on the committee, and in front of you, you have this write-up about LACAC, the Local Architectural Conservation Advisory Committee. And we used to do different events as a heritage committee to promote the heritage of the area and heritage properties with their potential. We used to be at shopping malls and do exhibits, and we would have a handout such as the one you have in front of you. So there was a wonderful opportunity for promotion of the heritage in the city, potential heritage properties, and one of the ways we promoted it was through bus tours. The bus tours were sponsored by Kitchener Transit, and that's pre-1999 because transit then went to the region of Waterloo. The themes I'd like to draw your attention to, and these were yearly, but in 1992, the one theme was Meditate on Your Past, Kitchener First in Religious Worship. The second one, 1999, Meditating Our Past, a tour of downtown houses of worship. And the properties to be presented in today's item 4.3, 91 Madison South and 23 Weber North, were part of those tours. And I just thought it was very interesting, and I'm very glad to see that they have remained listed and they're existing today, and they are now before us for consideration. So we'll now then head to Bill 4.3, Bill 23, Municipal Heritage Register Review, February 2024 update, DSD 24-056. And Jessica Vera will provide a brief presentation and overview. Jessica, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as noted, this is a continuation of part of our ongoing Municipal Heritage Register review work that we initiated last year in response to the changes that occurred to the Ontario Heritage Act as part of Bill 23. We now have 2 more properties to present to the committee, which staff believe meet the criteria for designation under Ontario Regulation 906. The first is 91 Madison Avenue, and our assessment has identified that 7 out of 9 criteria is met. So the first of these is that the property has design value, as it's a unique example of a specific architectural style within the area, and it displays artistic merit through detailed elements such as the windows, doors, decorative brick, and concrete. It has historic and associative values as it relates to the early settlement of the Jewish community within Kitchener, and it was the first synagogue within the city. The building does remain in its original location within the Cedar Hill Neighborhood Cultural Heritage Landscape, and it has retained its original use as a place of worship, though it now operates for a different religion. And it has a distinctive architectural style within the neighborhood and is also located near the peak of a very long rolling hill, which means that it could meet the criteria for a landmark as well. The second of the properties is 23 Water Street North, and staff's assessment has determined that it meets 6 out of the 9 criteria for designation. The first is that it is a representative example of the Neo-Gothic architectural style, and it displays artistic merit through detailed elements. It was built for the Church of St. John the Evangelist and has always been used as a place of worship, and it's been occupied it contributes significantly to the understanding of the settler community that initially came here. The property is located in its original location and is in the downtown core of Berlin, which was later Kitchener, and it supports the character of the downtown area. It also retains its original use as well. And that concludes staff presentation on the 2 properties.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there questions about either of the properties for Jessica? I have one about 23 Water Street North. The woodwork in the building is magnificent, and the interior is in its absolute original form. We do not, supposing we were to designate, we do not designate the interior unless requested by the applicant or the owner, correct?
That is correct.
Right. I will also mention that it has a magnificent organ, and the organist who is hired at the moment does miracles with his organ, and if they ever have concerts, I'd suggest have a listen. It's quite an experience. So, any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Chapman.
No, I was just wondering if we can vote on each of them separately. Is that what we do, or do we vote on them as a package?
I believe the recommendation has them put together.
Okay.
I don't know if
So it's at the discretion of the committee. If for some reason there's some committee members who don't want to approve one of the properties, then you could put them forward as 2 separate motions.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to support both. It just seems like to give them due respect, that we do them separately.
Committee, could you just, by a show of hands, show me if you wish to, if you're willing to have them represented separately. Fine, we'll do them separately. Thank you. So if this report receives approval from the committee, staff will contact the property owners advising the intention to designate. And I will read the motion separately. That pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the cultural heritage value or interest be recognized and designation pursued for the property known as 91 Madison Avenue South. All those in favor? Motion carried. Now we'll do the second one. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the cultural heritage value or interest be recognized and designation pursued for the following property, 23 Water Street North. All in favor? Motion carried. Staff, you may proceed. Thank you.
Through the chair, I don't believe there's a mover for those items, so if you don't mind just asking for a mover.
I'm a little too eager. Maybe I moved it. All right, we'll go back. We'll redo this. All right, who would move the motion for 91 Madison Avenue South? Natalie? Thank you. All those in favor of proposed designation of 91 Madison Avenue South? Thank you. All in favor, carried. Motion, I need someone to move the recommendation proposed to designate 23 Water Street North. Ilona. All those in favor of proposal to designate 23 Water Street North? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder, Madam Clerk. All right, we'll go on now. 2023-2026 Strategic Plan, Committee Areas of Interest, and 2024 Heritage Kitchener Committee Work Plan. And Garrett Stevenson, Director of Development and Housing Approvals, will provide a brief presentation and overview. Garrett, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm happy to be able to share with you the council-approved strategic plan for 2023 to 2026 and how our committee will support the work that is being directed by the strategic plan and by council. So we know that we have some work to do in terms of a meaningful way to establish Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner's call to action. We know that this work begins with establishing relationships and working together with Indigenous peoples and rights holders and other people who have an interest. Our committee, we celebrate the significant culture and history of our community, and of course, that goes back all the way to the very earliest settlements of our area by our Indigenous people. So, you know, as we continue to work our way through that work, we will continue to update this committee as well as continue to tell stories through our heritage approvals as well as through our storytelling, how important the history of our community is. So over the next 20 years, so between now and 2043, this strategic plan is rooted in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So this is a global standard that we voluntarily have committed to meeting. It's where we'll measure the economic, social, and environmental impacts of what we do as a city and openly communicate progress through the social development goals through the life of the strategic plan. So that's something that is voluntary, that our council is committed to and has agreed to be evaluated to see where we are with that work and to be critiqued in order to ensure that we continuously improve and align our work wherever possible with this global body of work. So, when we talk about the vision and thinking about the history, the strategic plan says in 2043, the city is filled with well-designed, adaptive reuses and new mixed-use, mixed-income housing options as diverse as our neighborhoods and the people who live in them. So this committee, the work that you've done tonight and will continue to do and focus, when we talk about reuse and adaptive reuse and creating housing for people at different stages in their lives, you will see a lot of development applications that are going to be proposing additional housing to support our growing community, and as well as opportunities to celebrate our cultural heritage past and integrate some of that within the new development applications. So in terms of this committee's role in meeting the vision for 2043, that's how I see us contributing and being part of this overall vision. The vision is building a city for everyone where together we take care of the world around us and each other. So we think about that, and we think about that vision of taking care of the world and as well as each other, how important that is, and how we are going to continue to contribute to that work as we continue to review and celebrate our cultural heritage and continue to storytell. So working together in some of the ways, so there are actions based on 5 themes, which are based on the SGD goals, and so I was just thinking about how our work is going to contribute to each of the themes. So under the Connected City Together, we have the Housing for All implementation. So as we continue to do Housing for All implementation, that's the full housing continuum. So when we think about supportive housing to people who are in emergency shelter all the way to home ownership and everything in between, this committee has a role in supporting different projects and ensuring that as we progress and as our city changes and grows, that we never forget our cultural heritage and where we came from. So, as we continue to support our regional partners and other not-for-profits with different development applications, I remember last year that 97 Victoria Street, the Working Center, was brought forward here. The Working Center has done some work on Queen Street with the support of this committee. That's really important work, and it's really important to be able to tell a voice and to show that we can balance not only cultural heritage protections and preservation, but also that we can have progress and move forward with housing to ensure that everyone in our community will be housed. Under the Cultivating a Green City, green development standards. So, as we continue to have sustainable building and green technologies integrated, I think this committee is going to have to balance the interests of, some of the cultural heritage landscapes and some of the cultural heritage resources that are existing, and what that means about integrating some green energy features and renewable resources. I'm sure we're going to have interesting conversations about protections of architectural features and solar panels or different ways that we can ensure that buildings continue to be sustainable as we increase our standards with green development standards. I think I've heard our colleagues from the ACO say in this very chamber a couple of times that the greenest building is an existing building, and I think that's something very interesting that with our work through Bill 23, our protecting built cultural heritage resources and designating them, that's also a contribution to ensuring sustainable development and not prematurely removing building and carbon into the atmosphere when something can be preserved and celebrated and readapted. Oh, I had to go back to one, sorry. The official plan comprehensive update. So the housing and planning policy team is undertaking a review of our new official plan. So as our committee knows, we take direction from our official plan. That's a council approved document. And we have a whole section on cultural heritage resources, which provides staff with direction on how we undertake this work. As we're going to continue to evolve and reimagine what that official plan work looks like through your term on Heritage Kitchener, we're going to have presentations on what that looks like, and you'll be able to have influence on policy language and what that's going to eventually be in front of council and what that final document will look like. So I see lots of opportunity for this committee as part of the official plan update to implement the strategic plan. through through the thriving economy pillar, what I was thinking about and what I was reflecting on is the work that this committee has done on not only this committee but the committees before you on adaptive reuse and reconsideration of a lot of our existing warehouse buildings that now provide economic opportunities. Lang Tannery Innovation Arena. We have lots of examples of really creative thinking, some hard decision making, and some significant investments by the development community to reimagine existing spaces in order to support a thriving economy. The goal that set forward in the strategic plan is to continue to support medical and health innovation, and I do think that there's going to be more opportunities to repurpose and reconsider some of our existing building stock, whether they're designated or whether they're designated through the development process as those continue to evolve and readapt to provide space for employment uses. So with that, that was my quick summary. We'll provide, they're on my desk, I forgot to bring them down, but we have hard copies of the strategic plan that I'll bring to our next meeting so that we can have with us. And this is something we'll continue to draw your attention to as we're asking you to make recommendations or considerations in alignment with this strategic plan.
Thank you, Garrett, for the overview. And it was good to hear certain of the areas fleshed out in the plan, such as the green economy and repurposing buildings. When I looked at the plan and read the plan, I was concerned that I didn't see it really, the green city. I was a little taken aback that I didn't see specific recommendation or specific referral to building reuse, that kind of thing. So I look forward to having that included. Committee members, questions for Garrett? Yes, Councillor Chapman.
Well, I'll ask a question. Nobody else wants to. So, I mean, yeah, the Sustainable Development Goals are important, and I know the city's embraced them with open arms. When we have applications coming forward, is it the idea that you will highlight which of those development development goals or strategic, what do you call it, SDGs, the development goals are relevant to that particular application? Or is this just something we'll have in the back of our minds and we'll put it in a drawer in our desk?
So the Sustainable Development Goals are really the guiding principles that's going to influence all of that work. So, that all of the recommendations and the works that stem out of the strategic plans were developed with the Sustainable Development Goals as the overarching guiding principles. So I think, when we talk about our work, our plan is to align it with the strategic plan. We do have that section in all of our staff reports, and we'll be able to call out those alignments more clearly for the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the members? Back to the upcoming official plan review process. One of the things that I heard the night of the overview for Growing Together, and I had a question earlier for staff when we talked about growing together for this committee, and it seemed as though there wasn't enough time for discussion or how to bring things together and out in the open early enough or to meet with staff. And I wonder, how, Garrett, do you see this committee or committee members being involved in perhaps more than just getting the report from staff and then quickly deal with it at a committee meeting?
Yes, thank you for the question, Chair. So Our official plan update is going to be a multiple year review that's going to have multiple touch points with council. So the first step is going to council to help develop that framework, that guiding framework on what are those engagements, what are those touch points, and we're going to develop that with council. The idea is that it is an integrated process with all of our advisory committees, with our community, and we're going to really set a new standard for engagement. I know that the team has a lot of really creative ideas on not only how to workshop and gather ideas from stakeholders and residents and communities, but really utilize the resources and the knowledge that we have in committees and other bodies. So we will provide you more of a fulsome update. That team is going to council and getting endorsement, and we'll take council direction on how to fully develop that work program. And once that's done, we'll be able to provide you with a full update.
Yes, and I can't emphasize enough the participation from residents, from members of the committee. And I will say, over the years, official plans and understanding the language, it's kind of strange at first. It's demanding, it's time consuming, and so I would hope that there would be those plans or there's opportunities where members could sit with staff and discuss them, not necessarily in a formal meeting such as this, but in some way to review the material and then shake it out and talk with staff about ideas and so on. So I'll just pass that on. Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification on your question. Unfortunately, I missed the January meeting when Growing Together came to the committee. I did watch it online, but are you requesting that a meeting be held to discuss the Growing Together document further, or are you thinking of the official plan? Because you mentioned both, that's why I'm bringing it back.
I was thinking of the example of how it was sort of like hurtling through the Growing Together, and now we're into official plan, and I think we have an opportunity to have a different kind of process. I sense from the architectural conservation group, the ACO, and about our heritage districts, and I sense that what is being proposed is really not very healthy for those districts. And I have no idea. I don't live there. I'm not as familiar with Victoria Park or Civic Center, but I sense that the Growing Together puts tremendous amount of pressure on preservation. And I acknowledge the fact that we're banking on the fact of what the Ontario Heritage Act says, and that you must comply with the Ontario Heritage Act. However, I do have concerns about some of the proposals that the Growing Together initiative suggests. In my opinion, it isn't exactly conserving heritage. I know the other side. I can see the difficulty with which planning staff will meet, and we just don't want to lose the integrity of those districts. So I don't know if there's a chance for people to meet with respect to Growing Together, Councillor Chapman.
Yes, staff is committed to this, right? In different ways. I don't know, Garrett, maybe you can help us with this. Is there an opportunity for any members of this committee that might want to just go over it in more detail? Is that a possibility?
So I will have to get back to you on that. I know my colleagues through the Growing Together team, it was one project where we did the most amount of engagement that we've ever done. I know that there was comments about having materials available sort of late in the year, and we're reaching out with folks with some specific meetings. So I'll certainly pass the message along, but I'm not prepared to know exactly what those engagements will look like now. The team is working on it, and I can get back by email.
Okay, because it would have to be by email rather than waiting till the next Heritage Committee meeting, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I know that ACO also is interested in having a meeting, so I don't think that's been set up yet. But no, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman, and thank you, Garrett. I do appreciate the work you've done, staff, and I can understand the pressures that you face. I watched the meeting of Growing Together, and there are many challenges from many sides that you will have to face, and how we resolve it. I've heard the word balance, and a planning professor told me once, balance is the lowest common denominator and is not always the best. So I keep those thoughts ringing in the back of my mind as we talk about heritage conservation. Are there any other comments? All right. Thank you for that update. And now we'll go to information item, the heritage permit application tracking sheet. Are there questions for staff on this one? And staff, have you any comments that you'd like to make for? Yes, Jessica.
We have no updates at this time.
Could you bring us up to date as to the designation? Like there were 24, it was passed and then come back, and the designation statements, do they have to be advertised now in the paper, or are we finished?
Through you, Madam Chair. So we did bring forward the updated statements of significance for a couple properties. We've contacted the property owners at this time, and we've given them about a month in order to respond with any concerns that they have. Once that time period is up, we're looking to bring forward the actual notices of intention to designate. So I believe those would be slotted for either March or April.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, ideas you would like to have pursued? Seeing none, then, who will adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Chapman. And thank you to everyone.